Happy Thursday and welcome here to another edition of Husker Online Headlines. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple. We're nearly through this 29-day month of February as we are inching closer to the start of spring practice. And we've got a great show on tap here for Husker Online Headlines. And let's get right to it, Steve Sipple. Out of the gates, let's welcome in Nebraska's defensive coordinator, Tony White, as we get a wrap on signing day, a preview of spring practice. Coach, first of all, thanks for joining us. I hope you've been able to catch your breath here a little bit over the February dead period.
Yeah, no, appreciate you guys for having me. It's a good time right now. We're really focusing on us, and we just broke from a third down meeting, so I'm kind of upset right now. I'm just gonna let you know that I was not happy with the third down number. So let's go. Let's get it going.
You weren't happy with the third down numbers from last year?
Nah. I mean, we gotta, the whole mantra is the chasing three. So we're trying to break everything down and making sure that we really look at things critically, and go back to the drawing board and stuff and see how we can be that much better, 3 points better. And a lot of it is going to be the critical situations, so first thing up is third down. And, there's some things in there. I'm like, what was I thinking? So yeah, that's what's putting me in a great mood right now.
Well, Coach, you had quite a year one at Nebraska. Obviously, the improvements your unit made are well documented, and a lot of people around the nation took notice. I mean, your name came up for some pretty high profile positions. We heard Matt Rule even talk about your alma mater, UCLA. They reached out to him to talk to you about as a candidate. How did you manage just that attention and just some of the things that went on with your off season?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of unfair because, anytime something good happens, right? It was the name. It was my name's being thrown around, but it was 100% the players and the assistant coaches. I mean, I didn't make one tackle. I didn't make one interception. I didn't do anything. I mean, those guys went out there and they played their butts off for Nebraska. They played their butts off for this university, for Coach Rule. And then the assistant coaches, being able to go in the room with those guys and being able to come up with the game plan. And those guys, getting those guys, the young men to buy in and play fast and really be what we want to be about. Again, that was the true magic of it all. So I was very lucky and very fortunate for that my name came up for some of those jobs and for the position. But I only do that if I can give credit where credit is due, and that's to the players and that's to the assistant coaches and that's Coach Rule. I've never been in the situation where the head man just basically is like, hey man, I want to make sure that we take advantage of this and do everything right and try to set you up to be in a position where you can be a head coach if that's what you want to do. And I've never been around that before, and so I am beyond blessed and beyond lucky to be part of this whole organization, represent the end, and be able to give credit to the true people who deserve the credit. And that's guys like Nash, that's guys like Ty, Javen, Luke, Nick. I mean, Tommy Hill played his butt off. Isaac Gifford. I mean, Jamari Butler, T. Knight, Coop, Rob Dvorak. Those guys deserve the credit 100%, period.
Tony, I know you don't want to talk about yourself. Just let me ask one more question along those lines. Has it always been a career goal of yours to lead a program? It's not the case with all assistant coaches I've talked to over the years. Is that the case with you?
No, it was not. And I think when I first started, you just want to be good at what you're doing. Just be good at what you're doing, and then as you start to get more responsibility, you kind of picture yourself like, what if you were the head coach, or it would be cool to be the head coach. And then when I was at Arizona State and I was talking to Herm Edwards, he kind of reinforced that thinking where as he was growing up in his experiences, it was told to him, you know what, if you just concentrate on you and you doing a good job for others, then those things will come. But you can dream all you want to. If you don't do a good job where you're at, you're not going to get any of that stuff. So he reinforced that, and then being able to see the guys run around and the players have fun, and what success comes from that, you know, coming over here with Coach Rule and wanting to see from the ground up, you know, be around one of the best to ever do it, period. I mean, talk about have a formula to go into a place to completely just build a foundation where you can win, even when they're gone. If you notice, that's the great ones, right? When they're gone, they still win. Mm-hmm. That means that the bare bones of it was built the right way. And so to be able to come over here and watch it, then, you know, you have some success. And it's kind of a deal where Coach Rule is really the one that's like, hey, look, you know, you're going to be put in these situations. Let's get you right. Let's get you ready for it. So that way, if you do continue to do a good job, then that may happen. So I just want to focus on, again, the whole thing was cool. It was a great experience, you know, talking to all the schools and being in that situation, because now I kind of get a feel of what they're looking for and all that stuff. But right now, all that stuff is over. You know, I'm not talking head coach. I'm not nothing. Like, I am the worst defensive coordinator in the country right now. And that's the way we're approaching it. We're like, hey, we got to get 3 points better. And I'm not going to be doing that, patting myself on the back. You know, it's all about the guys, all about the making it easy for the players coming up here in the spring, and let's roll.
Coach, last year obviously was your first year in the Big Ten Conference. What did you learn about this league, and how did you feel like your style and your scheme matched up in year one in the Big Ten Conference?
Yeah, you know, the probably the noticeable difference is week in and week out, the fronts. You know, a lot of the leagues and places I've been, the athletes on the perimeter have been very similar, you know, just dynamic. I mean, really good. You're talking about guys who are going to be all pros and make tens of millions of dollars in the NFL. But I think the biggest difference is the fronts. You're seeing consistently 6'5", 6'6", 6'7", 320, 30, 40 pounds, guys who can run the ball, guys who can play action you. Really, really, really good coaches, good players up in the front. So and I think I heard Coach Rule say this, that the most important thing is not necessarily what you do, but how you do it. You know, establishing the identity you want to play with, especially on the defensive side of the ball, right? You see teams winning with 4-3, 3-4, 3-3-5, you know, 4-2-5. The scheme, I think it takes a little backseat to how you want to do things, you know, the standard you set. And the best thing about being here and being around the other guys is that we all see things the same way. You know, you gotta be able to get off blocks. You gotta be able to run. You gotta have an attitude like, it doesn't matter. I'm gonna get my butt to the ball and I'm gonna hit anything that moves. So, and the way we practice, it's really conducive to that physicality. So it's fun. And but again, when you get to this period of time, it is back to square one. It's back to zero. We ain't done any. Last year's defense had all those numbers. This year's defense hasn't done squat. So that's the way we're approaching it.
Tony, you sound hungry. Now, okay, now I'm listening to you closely, and I hear what you say about maybe scheme doesn't matter as much as just doing things right. Mm-hmm. Now, all that said, I had a conversation with Ethan Piper, you know, warmer up. Yeah. And he told me that your defense's alignments and shifts and whatnot was a real mental challenge every day in practice for the offensive line. How much does the uniqueness of your system play a role in its effectiveness, in your opinion?
Well, I think anytime you can slow down the front guys, anytime you can mess up targeting, anytime you can put any doubt about guys coming off the ball, double teaming your D linemen, things like that, I think that's an advantage, right? But offenses do the same thing. They shift motion and trade. They fly motion. You know, they RPO game. They're 3 and 4 yards down the field, and so you don't know if it's run or pass, and they're still throwing the ball. You know, like they do little things like that to combat it. So I think just the flexibility of the 3-3-5 and in their targeting, and with the movement, the ability to move, it gives those offensive linemen in all week of practice. You know, it gives them something to be like, they got to take extra reps, make sure that their rules are correct. So I always equated it to, if you played in an academy, you know, the triple option, something you don't see all the time. It really makes you take extra time to say like, okay, we got to figure this out, because they'll roll you up real quick. So,
okay.
Yeah.
As we continue our conversation with the Nebraska defensive coordinator, Tony White, spring practice coach, less than a month away. We got a glimpse of one of your up-and-coming young players on Sunday at Pinnacle Bank Arena, Jeremiah Charles.
Oh, JC, yeah.
I got to ask you, did you think he had those kind of dunks in him? And, you see the weight he's added, obviously the track numbers and the way he's done. I mean, is he a guy that could make a push this spring?
100%. I mean, Jeremiah is a great example of what Nebraska, what development, what evaluation is about. You got this athlete. He is an elite caliber athlete, and you bring him in here, and then he's an offensive guy. Is he offense? Is he defense? Let's figure it out. So he starts on one side of the ball. Then Coach Rule and Coach Coop say, hey, let's put him on the other side of the ball. Now he's over there, and you start to see him in practice. You start to see him grow. You start to see him understand, like, oh, this is how you do things, and then he goes to track and he's honing his skills there. And then I had never seen that. I didn't know he was like that. I get people can dunk, but I didn't know he was like under the legs and tomahawking like that. I mean, like I got a whole new respect for him. So now when we play man-to-man coverage, he got no excuse now that I've seen that stuff. But he's a great example of what this program is about, giving a guy who has elite traits athletically and finding a spot for him and letting him develop into hopefully one of the better DBs that's playing football.
So he's an untested player, but you have a lot of tested players coming back, and some that didn't have to come back. Ty Robinson, Bullock, Gifford come to mind. What did it mean to you to have those guys back, and what does it mean to the defense, Tony?
Oh, I mean, that's the leadership part, right? That's the jump you want to make in terms of now they understand the expectations. They understand what it is and how we do things. So now instead of starting from 0 going into spring, you might be starting at step 2 or 3, and then continuing on from there, But again, the playmaking and the knowledge is one thing, but the attitude is the most important. The leadership is more important, where those guys have been there. They've been in the fire. They understand what success is and could be, and they understand where we fell short. And so you think that with the right frame of mind coming back, being bigger, faster, stronger, more knowledgeable, and then us seeing how guys attacked us and everything with a great offseason, I think that propels you into being able to have a head start into playing some good football, coming up here in the spring.
Tony, you came into this interview kind of surly because of the third down thing, which is nice.
You guys are calming me down right now. I'm in a good place right now.
This will help. You were 11th. I mean, you had an 11th ranked defense in the country. How do you keep your guys hungry like you? I mean, you're obviously very hungry. How do you keep your guys hungry?
You go to mat drills. That's the thing that coach. Again, great coaches. They're doing things all the time. They have a pulse of the team. And so I think Coach Rule being able to feel where we need to be kicked in the butt and be patted on the back. And then that message being echoed throughout the team, and the first unit meeting, again, this is the time for it, right? What we do now is going to translate in the fall. So the very first unit meeting and the very first team meetings with coach and the first unit meetings that we had as a defense, that was the message like, hey, last year's unit was 11th in the country. Okay. Last year's unit did that stuff. The guys sitting in this room every year, every rep, when it's a new team and guys leave, like that team hasn't done it. That team hasn't done anything. I mean, we haven't done anything. I haven't made one call yet. We have not done anything, period. So I think the young men feel that. So between the weights and the running and the mat drills that coach is getting after them with, and then all the little extra stuff that they're doing, the players feel it. They know, like, if we're over here slipping and trying to pat ourselves on the butt for what happened last year, they'll act the same way. But I think that's where great coaches step in, like Coach Rule, and he lays down the law, and we go from there.
Hey, Coach, as we wrap it up, I want to ask you about the new signing day legislation that's being talked about possibly having a late June signing day and an early December one and still February one. What is your just feel on that? I mean, you've been around the block with all the different signing days. Do you think the June one's necessary, or do you think an early December one will be enough? That way you can at least still have that senior year to evaluate on guys before they sign the papers.
I think being in the game, you can find advantages and disadvantages to everything. You know what I mean? I mean, there's some guys that if you add the period there, then there's some guys that probably are not on this roster, right? Because they might have committed and signed elsewhere, and then vice versa. There might not have been spots because maybe we would have taken a guy early and signed him early, and then he ended up leaving and stuff. So that's really organic, and just the times and nature of the way the game's going and NIL and all this kind of stuff. Like, I get all the changes in the legislation. The biggest thing in recruiting is always going to come down to the relationships, right? Like whether you sign in June or whether you sign later on, you're going to be able to find advantages and disadvantages. The biggest thing is you gotta believe in your process. You got to believe in your evaluations, and you got to trust the relationships that you build. And no matter if they have 5 signing days or 1 signing day, you get the players that you really want. So
Tony, one more from me.
Okay,
one more.
Don't, it better not be about third downs, please.
No,
Please.
It's not. What
Okay.
did it mean to you to have your entire staff of assistants back, your full-time guys back, that core unit? How much and how helpful is that?
Same as the players. I mean, and it's crazy because everybody sees what happens after the fact, a coach leave, but people don't hear about all the text messages and calls in between then, where it's like, hey, coach, so-and-so called me, reached out. They want to sign me to a 3-year deal. Hey, coach, so-and-so just hit me up they tried to FaceTime me. There's so much of that going on behind the scenes that people don't understand. And to be able to sit I said it last year, that to be able to sit in a room with T-Knight, Rob, and Coop, and our auxiliary staff, Kevin McGarry and Bringell and Potenza and Shevin Smith, like that's a really good group of coaches. And I'm talking about on the grass, off the grass. We find a good balance of having fun and fellowshipping and really being about each other, but also being able to roll our sleeves up and saying, hey, this crap ain't good enough. Like, how do we do this? How do we do this? How do we do this? So having the players come back because they believe in the culture and all that stuff is just as equally as important as having those coaches back. So that way we can take that 3-point jump.
Thank you, Tony.
Well, Coach White, we appreciate your time, and I can tell you there's a lot of happy Husker fans. You're back in Lincoln. I know there were a lot of nervous Husker fans here in the month of January and December as your name came up, and a lot of people are excited to see you back here on the sidelines for another season.
I'm grateful. I don't know why. So I got a wrong number from a solar company in California, and everybody thinks I'm going somewhere else. That's crazy. Absolutely great. I love Nebraska. I'm lucky to be here. So let's roll.
Okay.
All right. Thanks again.
Thank you,
to
Tony.
Nebraska defensive coordinator Tony White for joining us on Husker Online Headlines. That's the future head coach right there.
Woo, and he's hungry.
And
you got some hunger, Sean. You got a big taste of hunger right there. Does that make sense? A big taste.
Yeah, it's February 29th.
Yeah.
And you would think it's September 29th.
God. Yeah, he came on not in a great mood. But he was professional, but they had just been looking at third down tape. So I'd have to look what Nebraska was on third down. I don't know. They couldn't have been that bad because they were 11th nationally, but that was interesting, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people don't realize they're not just up there this time of year hanging out. It's
no, they're not.
And the mat drills are going on. So the coaches lead the mat drill. So they're there at 5 a.m. or whatever it is when they get there.
Yeah, if I were a fan and I saw this interview with Tony White, I'd feel really good about just the hunger on that side of the ball, the level of want to, because you saw that you can't fake you couldn't fake what you just saw. So that's going to rub off on those guys. Every day they're going to have to deal with that. He said this crap wasn't good enough. This crap wasn't good enough. I mean, and it wasn't always good enough. Let's face it.
The Colorado game was one. I mean, Michigan too, but the Colorado
I thought
game.
Wisconsin, they didn't shut it down. I mean, they could have shut that game down. They didn't. So he's right. They didn't. At times it wasn't good enough, but it was 11th in the country, and it was much better than we've seen at Nebraska in a while.
And some of this, I mean, I'll say this about Big Ten defenses as a whole. Their national rankings are inflated because of the style of offense played in this league.
No doubt.
I mean, teams grind out possessions. There's less plays, there's less yards, there's less points. So naturally, you're going to have defenses all ranked higher in this league.
For sure. I would counter that. And you're right. No, you're 100% right. But I would counter that with what you've watched football for a long time. I've watched football for a long time. You saw a defense that did what? Tackled really well.
Well, yeah, the tackles for loss, the number of missed tackles on Pro Football Focus, if you pull those metrics
down,
markedly better. I mean, from year over year, especially, obviously.
Yeah.
I mean, they were what, 110, 100th in total defense the year before?
Right. Yeah, they're in the dregs. So it wasn't perfect. I mean, I'm thinking about a missed tackle right now they had late in the Iowa game when that running back got loose, right? Remember that? Late in the Iowa game, had a couple guys miss near the line of scrimmage. But by and large, as you watched last season, oftentimes we'd remark in the press box, wow, they're flying to the ball. Sean, I'd say, Sean, they're getting guys to the ball every play. Multiple. And but there's things they can do better.
It's a different style game, though. Like, when Frost was here and the Big Ten was a little bit more offensive driven, when you had guys like Braum and other coaches, there'd be maybe 20 more plays run a game.
A little more spread out, right?
And spread out, where now there's so many just big situational moments. Like you mentioned, like Mordecai on 3rd and 8 or 3rd and 9 running, just like there's 3 or 4 of those moments that keep Tony White up at night, because
third downs.
When you only play, let's just say, a 60 snap game, those are the 3 or 4 moments that win the game.
The third down conversation is fascinating to me because you sit with me next to it in the press box, and I catch myself doing it all the time. In the first quarter, I'll be like, this third down's huge. Every third down's huge. So he comes at us with that today. It was fascinating to me that I've been looking at third down. I'm not in a good mood. Great interview, though. That was a great interview.
Yeah.
I mean, he and you're right, Sean. He has the it factor. It was interesting. He hasn't always thought of being a head coach. He's thinking about it more now. And you can tell he's thinking about it more now because Rule has obviously imparted to him that he can do it. And he's like a spokesman for him.
I mean, it's a great reflection on a Rule. If the guy that you brought in becomes a head coach at UCLA or somewhere.
Great point.
I mean, it looks like, God, this guy knows what he's doing.
Yeah. Yeah. Because remember, there was no prior not a big prior connection between Rule and Tony White. I think he had to go back a ways. It wasn't, he wasn't part of Carolina.
They were 2 ships passing the night at UCLA, basically.
That's it. Thank you, Sean. That's exactly right.
I mean, they were there, but they weren't really
right.
Right. They at least had a connection point.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like they had an extensive working relationship.
No, and he brought him in and it worked out, but it can get better. And from that interview, I get the sense that it will be better. They have the ingredients. They have so much returning talent on all 3 levels, really. I mean, so we'll see what happens.
And he's now one of the highest paid assistant coaches in the Big Ten. The numbers aren't updated yet on USA Today when they do that, but I believe he'd be in the top 3.
He should be. The other part that was interesting to me, and I never knew how to work this out in my mind. There's a question I asked him about what Ethan Piper said. Ethan Piper said it was a big challenge for the offensive line every day going against that sort of unique system that Tony runs. And he didn't shoot down that it's a bit of an advantage. It's always going to come down to tackling and getting off blocks, but it does give them a bit of an advantage. And that's big. That's big.
All right, let's take it to headline number 3. And, we kind of talked on this, I think, last week briefly, but the college football playoff and just the changes to the game. We know for the next 2 years, 24 and 25, it will be at 12 teams, and there'll be 5 at-large bids, 4 to the highest conference champions. But in 26 and beyond, there's a lot of changes in play to make the playoff now 14 teams. And the big talking point right now is automatic bids. And the proposal that's being tossed out there is the SEC and the Big Ten would each get 3. So 6 of the 14 guaranteed. The Big 12 would get 2. The ACC would get 2. And then the entire group of 5 would get 1.
Mm-hmm.
And then there would be 3 at-large bids. But that leads me to a few thoughts on that. Notre Dame is 1.
Okay.
because if they're not a part of the ACC or a conference and they're 9-3,
Okay.
they're going to get one of those 3, right?
Yeah.
I mean, on a 14-team playoff. Now, if we're talking a 14 playoff, they're not. So really, there'll be 2 more and 2 more at-large bids or at-large after the automatics. And so the SEC and the Big Ten would kind of fight for those 2. And I think the thought is, why have so many at-large bids that go right to the conferences, or I'm sorry, automatic bids, like that are automatic to a league? Why not just have 1 per conference and then the rest be an at-large deal where you get in based on the rankings? And I think there's arguments.
I'll tell you why. Because it takes out the subjectivity. I kind of like the model where you have 3 automatic. I mean, we're talking about automatic bids, okay?
And the Big 12 would get 2, and the ACC would get 2.
Right, SEC 3, Big 10 3. I like it because it takes out the subjectivity. You get, these are automatic bids. It takes out the college football committee screwing it up. It takes out the human factor.
Now there would still be a human factor though to decide the 3 teams or the 2 teams, like from a conference. Like, the champion's going to get one of the 3 bids, but the second and the third bid, what if there's a mash of 9-3 teams?
Yeah. Oh, you're talking about ties.
Yeah. Like how well the playoff committee would have to rank those and decide those elements. But
good point.
Notre Dame, if they stay on track, they're going to get one of those 3 bids almost every year.
Yeah. I
mean, and it's almost, this model also to me is set up now where Notre Dame doesn't really have to join a conference. I mean, they know they have a clean path in to the playoff in this system if they go this way, but they still won't get a bye. We know that unless that changes. We don't know what a 14-team bracket's going to look like.
No, we don't. And we're talking, so people understand, this is not
2026.
Yeah, 2026. This is all I think it gets confusing for a college football fan sometimes. Like, what are these guys talking about? I thought there was a 12-team playoff with 7 automatic.
But if you're 10-2, you're in the playoff.
Or is it 5 automatic bids, by the way? In the 12-team, it's 5 automatic. Anyway, no, you're right.
5 plus 7.
Yeah, 5 plus 7.
And now it'd be a 12 plus 2. Or sorry, 11 plus 3. 11 plus 3.
Okay, 11 plus 3.
But I do. I mean, I guess if you're a fan of just college football, because what would happen if the Big 12 only got 1 bid guaranteed and the ACC would only get 1? They would almost get treated like a group of 5 type deal.
There was
where they're like, you would look at the recruiting rankings. You're like, well, these teams in the Big 12 and the ACC don't recruit like the ACC, the Big 10 and the SEC.
Right.
So automatically they use this term eyeball test. To me, it's basically the recruiting rankings test. Okay. The teams that don't recruit like Alabama and Georgia get dinged on the eyeball test. And, like Kansas State had that great team with Colin Klein where, they could have won the national title. They didn't have any 5 stars. They didn't have the quote eyeball test. They were just a good team.
Yeah.
So I think some of that, would keep the Big 12 more relevant. It would keep the ACC more relevant to at least say, hey, 2 teams are going to go.
That's pretty good. I agree with you 100% on that. It goes along with this paragraph. I don't know what people think when they read paragraphs like this. It goes along with what you're saying. This is in Ross Dellinger's story on Yahoo Sports. The 3-3-2-2-1 format is what we're talking about. It is a move toward another trend in college athletics: unequal treatment among its members. I mean, remember we grew up, it was always, we got to figure out ways to level the playing field. It's sort of reversed now. It's like there's a move towards another trend in college athletics: unequal treatment among its members. It doesn't sound healthy, but it's realistic. It's realistic. The SEC and the Big Ten is what's driving that sort of conversation.
They're calling the shots.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if they don't like this, it's not going to happen.
Right. Now, I don't know how I feel. I mean, I know this. If you're a Husker fan, you count your blessings because you're in with the big boys. Thank your lucky stars that you're in the right league and that you are a very well-heeled university athletic department. I wouldn't want to be sitting outside it.
though, if the Big 12 gets 2,
that helps.
like Kansas State and Chris Kleiman,
You feel pretty good about it, right?
He likes it. Like, hey, we can get
Lance Leipold likes it.
Like
Kansas.
Did you see his contract, by the way?
Yeah, he got $7 million. Yeah.
So that tells you, obviously, Michigan State was in play for him.
It was a lot in play for him. It tells you a lot, not just Michigan State.
Alabama.
Yeah, it tells you a lot was in play for him. So
he's not leaving there now anytime
Probably
soon.
not. They're building they're expanding their football stadium to the tune of $300 million at Kansas, and it's going to be with amenities, restaurants, and all that.
Because he could get them to a playoff in this expanded field.
Yeah,
like he could get them there. I mean, it's
2026. This came out yesterday. There's leaks. College football. You just wonder if the College Football Management Committee intentionally leaks this
ADs
to see what the what fans say about it.
Okay, so if you're Florida State, though, and they've kind of made it known they want more money and they want to leave the ACC, but if you know the ACC is going to get 2 guaranteed bids, does that make you think twice? Or do you want a piece of that Big Ten check?
I don't think it makes them think twice.
They want that Big Ten check, don't they?
It wouldn't solve all their money issues.
I still believe if they go anywhere, the Big Ten is more likely than the SEC, because I don't think the SEC wants them. And the only way they would is if ESPN kind of forced it, because ESPN controls the ACC and the SEC.
Mm-hmm.
And Florida State's a big inventory block in there. Mm-hmm. And you're going to just let Florida State go to Fox and CBS and NBC. That's a huge hit to ESPN. So
nice for the Big Ten to be in Florida, I would think, under the way the world's going now.
Yeah, Florida State, North Carolina. You hear a rumbling. I don't know if this is true. There's people that think that Texas A&M's unhappy in the new Big Ten or SEC because of Texas and Oklahoma joining there, and they're kind of back to being third fiddle.
Yeah, it would be unwise to shoot down anything right now. I would think. I mean,
like the Big Ten could try to court A&M. I don't know if that's going to happen, but
I wouldn't rule it out.
But would they? What if this scenario? You get Florida State, you get North Carolina, you get A&M, you get Notre Dame. Game over.
Yeah, it'd be game over, and it's realistic. I mean, if you don't think it's realistic, you're not paying attention of, for instance, Cal and Stanford going to the ACC. I mean, it doesn't. I mean, the conference setup, the way we grew up, is out. I mean, you can't. It's not the Big 8 anymore.
The conference setup now is about a check from ESPN.
Thank you.
Or Fox.
Yeah. Now, SEC has stayed regional. It's why I tout the SEC continually as the way it should be. The SEC remains the way it should be. They are regional
because they have fans.
Yeah, and they're regional, and it's in the right part of the country. It's where football's the big.
And the Sun Belt's regional still too.
Yeah, that's true. Is it?
Oh yeah.
Is it?
The joke. I mean, the Sun Belt's a bus league. I mean, the team's bus.
Really? I'd have to look at that.
Yeah, they're all right there.
See, a lot of people anymore don't even know about. They don't even pay attention to the Sun Belt anymore, or those little conferences. It's college football is, like I read that paragraph. It's almost becoming a trend to have inequality in college football.
And Feinbaum brought up a great point. Why even give the group of 5 a playoff spot? Like why
did Feinbaum say that?
He says, why is it needed? I mean, we're going to see more games like Oregon versus Liberty. Like, because the UCF Scott Frost team, the Houston teams that were good, well, guess where those teams are now? They're in power conferences.
So the group of 5 would play for its own championship.
Yeah, you could.
Yeah,
I mean,
well, wouldn't you have to? They have to play for something.
You could do like a group of 5 Final Four.
How would you feel? I mean, I guarantee. I'm a traditionalist. When Feinbaum says stuff like that, it rubs me wrong.
But if you get beat,
that's 40, not the college football I want, Sean. That's not.
You want to see Oregon beat Liberty like 45-7.
I would hope that team, whoever it is, the Liberty, is a little better than that.
It's. I mean, power football. I call it Power 4 now. They've just
Power 4. Yes,
they've just destroyed Group of 5 football because they've taken UCF. They took BYU. They took Houston. I mean, all the good teams. Cincinnati, playoff team. Cincinnati. UCF was an undefeated team. They're all in power conferences now. So what's left? Tulane. Well, Willie Fritz left Tulane. Boise State is not the Boise State we knew of.
It's not right now. It's
before.
Not. No.
There's some potential with some of those Group of 5 teams like San Diego State, Wyoming, Colorado. But again, I think their good teams are out now. I mean, Memphis is still Group of 5.
It's harder for them, is
but it's
what you're
harder.
saying.
You're right. I mean, and then as these revenue checks get bigger and bigger for the power conferences, I mean, they're not going to compete.
Boy, I wonder what people think sometimes, or if they even think about it. I think about it a lot. It's not, I'm not going to lie, Sean. I thought college football was a lot cooler in 1989. Okay?
Group of 5 is more like FCS football,
I guess.
and then FCS is more like a Division II. I mean, or a higher. I mean, there's some good, like there's teams like South Dakota State. They could play Group of 5, but they don't want to. Why? I mean, they could win a national championship at their level. They could go to a bowl game in Boise if they go up. Why would they want that? You know, they can win a playoff in a championship or go win the Potato Bowl.
Right. So, to be clear to our listeners, our watchers, the college football playoff is set for the next 2 years. What we're talking about is 2026 and on, when there's a new TV contract is why we even talk about it. There'll be a new contract in place. They have to fit it to that.
Something will tell me though. I don't know if the SEC and the Big Ten are going to go for this. I think they want to have the flexibility to have more than 4 teams in,
or in this case, more than 3.
More than 3 guaranteed with those at-larges. I mean, I think they want more at-larges in the pool, because there could be a year when you put Texas and Oklahoma in there with already what they have,
and where they would. You're saying there could be years where the Big Ten and the SEC deserve more than 3
for teams. Sure. Well, they're going to get 4. Now 14, they're going to get 4, but there might be years they both deserve 5.
So you're saying 3 plus an at-large?
Yeah. 3 plus.
This is confusing to people. I think it's very confusing.
Well, there's 3 there's 3 that are up for grabs.
Automatic.
And Notre Dame's going to get 1, more than likely. So then there's 2 left that the SEC and the Big Ten will fight over.
Okay.
And the SEC is going to say, we want both of them. The Big Ten's going to say, we want 1. I mean, that will get ugly every year if it happens. All right. Let's take it to headline number 4. Another off season here in Lincoln, and we get an all access look of Nebraska football. I've gotten through about half of this first one, and as you would expect, really well done. You know, chronicling the Nash Hutmacher move to wrestling and just some of the things over this offseason.
Ty Robinson talking about why he came back, right? This is keeping in line. So we're talking about social media video, Twitter videos. I'm giving you a look inside Nebraska's program.
Well, it's a 45-minute show.
Okay, and it keeps what is largely defined the Matt Rule era so far, in your opinion? In my opinion, I would say transparency. He's very transparent. He's available a lot. He wants you to see inside his program. Now, transparency is good. Also, what's good? Controlling the message. This is a good way to control the message, right? He's showing what he wants you to show. The Rule had to approve this, right? Probably the AD had to approve it. They're showing what they want you to see, but they're showing you things that are real.
And Rule watches every minute of this before it goes.
100.
You know, just to make sure. And I'm sure compliance and other people have to watch it over, but I do think it's cool. Like they're showing these when the recruits come, they always kind of do this huge all-staff greet when they walk in the facility. And those clips are cool. I mean, just the amount of, camera work and archiving, it's a lot. I mean,
I know
some of the video we just watched was from June.
It's quite a production. This is quite a production.
Jordan does a really good job. Littler.
Jordan.
He puts these together, and he's a student, I believe, still.
So again, it gives you, this is very appealing. It shows you a very appealing aspects of the program. Football is not always appealing. Football is uncomfortable a lot of the time, but this shows you a level of comfort that's very appealing. We saw Tony White, by the way, today it was very real footage of him pulling up to his desk, sort of angry, right?
Previous coaches like Frost or Pelini, like it was just kind of like
wasn't going to happen.
I mean, it was a closed deal. Like it just
not just Frost and Pelini, Frank,
all of them,
right? I mean, Nebraska. You don't have to agree with this. I've always felt it was pretty closed off.
Riley was pretty open.
Yes.
Because he kind of let that social media team do what they wanted. I mean,
Riley was an exception.
Like, I mean, you saw, guys like Kelly Mosier and that crew, they had pretty good access to bring stuff back then.
Yeah, and I'm not being necessarily critical of Nebraska, but it's always been its style to be a little more buttoned down. Now that was now, Sean, Tom Osborne worked in an era where you couldn't have done this because there was no social media. In the 80s, you couldn't have done this if you wanted to do it.
Well, like NET would do like a day in the life of Nebraska football. Like it would take months to put it together. You remember like the specials they would do like that. I mean, that's what you had back then.
Right. But there wasn't as widespread access to it now. Now there's just anybody can access this. So it's interesting. But the bottom line to me is it's kind of keeping with rules style of transparency, or maybe you would call it selected transparency. You don't want to show everything, but you're showing a lot, and it gives the fans a really nice window into the program.
And the facilities.
Look at the facilities.
I mean, look at that.
Just look at that, Sean.
Are they on a spaceship or is that a locker? I mean, it's unbelievable.
It does kind of look like a spaceship.
It's like, are they up in the?
Nice.
I mean, it's
beautiful. Your Omaha Gross locker room didn't look like that.
No,
at all. Right. Neither did Columbus High.
No,
not quite like that. Not quite like that.
We had see-through like the metal lockers, like the mesh.
Oh, the mesh. So did we. Yeah.
And guys would take their towel and like you'd put a corner in the corner, you'd pull it through the mesh. Yep. That's how you dried your towel.
I don't think they're doing that over there right now.
Yeah, the amount of bacteria in those locker rooms, I don't even know how we made it.
We're here though.
We're here. We made it. But let's take it. Final headline of the show. I want to talk basketball.
Okay.
And we got a huge game tonight. Nebraska at Ohio State, 5:30. But what a great schedule to close out with. The final 3 games for Nebraska are against the 12th, 13th, and 14th teams in the Big Ten Conference right now. They will play Ohio State, who's 13, Michigan, who's 14, and Rutgers on Sunday, who's 12. So they've got a runway to really make some noise. And I think we both feel that 2-1 should happen.
It should.
3-0,
very possible.
It's a 2.5-point spread, underdogs at Ohio State. So it's a toss-up game. But we're really getting to a point where this team is going to be in some conversations about where they rank historically at Nebraska, which I don't think back in October, November, you would have thought that.
No way. No way. They've rounded into form really nicely here. And now you're looking at a team that would have to, first of all, play its way out of the NCAA.
They have to lose all 3 of these games.
Yeah, they'd have to play their way out in a startling way at this point. Like, it would really be like, what? Because what I keep telling people, Sean, is just trust your eyes with them. Don't overthink this. They're playing really well, and they're good. They have a good team. It's not star-studded, but it's pretty good.
4 guys averaging 4 starters averaging double digits.
Yeah, no first round NBA guys or anything like that. But Nebraska's had that before. They don't have that, but they are absolutely now I kind of look at it right now. And again, we're having this conversation Thursday morning prior to the Ohio State road game. But I'm starting to think of them as like the best Nebraska team in 30 years.
94.
Yeah, going back to
94. That was a 6 seed.
Yeah, okay.
And 91 was a 3 seed.
Okay. I can't put them ahead of the 91-92 team. That was a 3 seed.
Yeah, I mean, they just had a bad day against Xavier, but they were a 3 seed.
3 seed. But anyway, so this team, don't overthink it. If you're just looking at the individual games after Ohio State, Rutgers is on Sunday at 5:30. Here's what I would say about that game, Sean. I'm serious about this. Let's see if Rutgers can get to 50 points.
Nebraska could win that game by 20.
Let's see if Rutgers gets to 50.
Because they should have beat Rutgers in Rutgers.
Yeah, you could say that's crazy talk. No, Minnesota got 55 on Nebraska. No, Minnesota had 55 last night, Wednesday night, against Illinois. They had 57, I think, with 16 minutes to go in the game. Ended up scoring in the 90s against Illinois, a game after Nebraska held them to 55. We probably don't talk enough about Nebraska's defense. They are really good defensively, and that's something I think they've been pretty much all year. But I think it's built to a higher level of late.
Well, think what they've done the last 2 years to Purdue.
Right.
I mean, they should have beat Purdue the year before. They got called on that bogus foul that would have won them the game.
Yeah, they got screwed. But yeah, this is a good defensive team that has sharp shooters. It's a good defensive team that can be lethal offensively. I say it all the time. Fred did a great job of putting shooters around Casey. Casey still gets a lot of defensive attention, but he'd be getting more if Bryce Williams weren't there, if Rink Mast weren't there, if CJ Wilcher wasn't there. Who am I missing? Jawan Gary had 22 points last game. This is a strong offense.
I love the rotation though, because they kind of go big early.
Mm-hmm.
Then they bring in this new line of guys where you've got Lawrence who can score, Wilcher who can score.
Yeah.
And then you bring in Hoiberg, who is just an unbelievable defender. And I mean, nobody gets that arena more jacked up than Sam Hoiberg.
Yeah, Sam Hoiberg's become more than just a novelty. I mean, he's real. He's a pain for teams, and not just defensively. He's not scoring a lot, but he's a threat offensively. You have to acknowledge him. And yeah, he's a dynamo. And what I notice about him all the time is he jumps passing lanes, because I bet he's about as well prepared a player as there is in America. I bet you could say that. His dad, I've talked to coaches who know his dad, and now they say Fred's offensive acumen and his readiness as an offensive coach is through the roof good. And I bet you Sam, he inherited that trait.
Yeah, he's a gym rat.
Gym rat, but smart. You were a gym rat, and you weren't that smart.
I wasn't that gifted. Sam Hoiberg, I bet runs like a 4.5 40, and I bet he has a 37-inch vertical.
Yeah, he's explosive. Explosive.
I go to a lot of Lincoln Pius games. I watched him play, and you could see it back then. He just projected so well.
He's
and
explosive.
Once he got in that weight room at Nebraska and nutrition, I was at the Pius Central game, the district finals, and Josiah Alec and Sam Hoiberg rolled in there, and you should have seen all that. They were celebrities rolling in that gym just with where Nebraska basketball.
God, it's nice. It's a nice thing that this conversation is not contrived. So often over the years with Nebraska basketball, you had to kind of feign this excitement that really wasn't.
Will they
there.
get an NIT home game?
Thank you.
Are we going to get a NIT? That's what we'd be having right now.
Like, we'd have to act like we give a damn. Come on.
Are they going to get a play Butler at home in the NIT?
Right. Come on. This is real. What's going on right now is real.
It's amazing, Sip, that they got 12,000 at an NIT game.
Right. That's what we'd be talking about. And
let's not jinx it yet, though.
No, I don't believe in jinxes, number one. And number two, again, I go back to what I say. Just you're watching them beat Big Ten teams handily night in and night out now. Even on the road, they beat Indiana by 15, right? Tonight, and again, we're taping right now. Tonight will be tough against Ohio State. I think they can win.
They're not going to be surprised, though.
No.
I think Ohio State, the surprise on them is over now. They beat Purdue and they beat Michigan State. You're going to be ready for them. You're not going to be like, oh, they fired Holtman. These guys have 1 foot out the door.
Nope.
They're all transferring.
Nope, they don't have 1 foot out the door. You're right.
You're not going to be surprised by these. Now, Michigan, on the last Sunday of the season, that could be a situation where they could go in Ann Arbor and there might be 3,000 Nebraska fans.
It's an 11 a.m. tip-off.
In Ann Arbor.
Yeah, it's an 11 a.m. tip-off.
On the worst season of Michigan basketball that maybe they've ever had.
Yeah, it has to be close.
It can't be much worse than what they are right now.
It has to be close. That's a tough game because of I think some people would say, no, it's not tough. There's not going to be anybody in the gym. Those games can be tough when there's nobody in the gym.
There'll be Nebraska fans in that area that will get up there.
I wonder, Purdue played there recently and took over that gym in Ann Arbor. The Purdue fans basically took it over. I wonder if Nebraska fans will do that.
I just don't know if there's enough in the area.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, it's a jaunt up there. Some people will go, obviously, but yeah.
Because a lot of people might, if they get the double bye, going to Minneapolis is kind of attractive at that point.
Oh, there'll be a lot of people up there from Nebraska.
Knowing that, hey, they're going to play Friday.
Yeah.
Let's go up to the Twin Cities. Maybe they'll play Saturday. Maybe they won't.
Yeah.
But we'll go up to the Twin Cities and enjoy it.
Oh, yeah. It'll be hot. It'll be hot because Nebraska fans will make it. It'll be fun.
I'm sending you up there, by the way.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Sipple is on the bandwagon.
I'm not on the bandwagon. I've always said this to people. You can't act, first of all, when they're good, it drives traffic. So, yeah, we're going to cover it more. That's the way it works. If a team's good, it drives traffic.
We run a business here,
right,
not a charity.
Right. You escalate coverage.
Our softball plan had a change when Jordy Ball got hurt.
Yeah.
The interest is still there. I mean, people follow it, but not to the level it was going to be with Jordy Ball.
Right. And so Fred's first 3 years, I mean, I wasn't going to commit a bunch of energy to a program that was scuffling at that level. Now it's better. People are more interested. Yeah, of course we're going to write.
Yeah, nobody wants to read a bunch of Steve Sipple obituary columns about how bad the season's going.
Right, and questioning no.
It just gets ugly at that,
Right, it's not fun. It's not fun for me. So this is much preferable, and it's much preferable to a lot of fans, which those fans drive traffic. They want to read it.
All right, well, Sunday they're back home, 5:30.
5:30.
It's going to be about 75 degrees Sunday.
Okay, think about the last Sunday. It was the same thing. Minnesota game was 5:30, and that place was loud.
Oh, God, yeah.
It was loud. Minnesota got rattled. Again, finished with 55 points. And there were possessions where it was loud, and I watched them. And I thought, yeah, they looked rattled on that possession.
And people will get down here early. By 2 or 3 o'clock, it'll be rolling down here. Like they'll be
rolling.
The rail yard.
Rolling.
They need to get more than one beer window open outside, though.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be a lot of people outside for this one.
You're right.
It won't be no sit Sunday level.
No, it'd be hard to achieve that.
But it will still be.
It's Rutgers.
Kind of a tip your hat to this season type Sunday.
I want to see if Rutgers can get to 50. That's what I want to see.
I mean, they're walking in
to a buzzsaw.
I mean, it's gonna. I mean, that play. I mean, and the beer sales now in the last 2 years. I mean, it's going to be juiced in that arena.
If I was Fred, I think I would challenge my guys. Don't let them get to 50. Don't let them get to 50.
Oh, and if there's blood in the water, PBA will just take that place over.
Yeah.
And you hope the referees kind of make a couple suspect calls early because that actually gets the place going. I mean,
the boozer.
I've heard Nick Boss say this once. He goes, Nebraska fans like overreact to basketball refs like nowhere I've ever seen before. Just on like little tic-tacky stuff. And
there's no doubt about that.
I mean, you got to trust Nick. Nick's played a lot of places. He's been around the country. Right. He's like the way like PBA or Devaney gets on refs. Like,
oh, it's lusty.
I mean, you would think like they threw the game sometimes. It's just like
it's hardcore booing. Hardcore booing. I mean, yeah.
There's been people at courtside seats that have been ejected. Like, there was a guy
friends of yours.
But I've known who some of the people were. Yeah. Like one guy made a comment to Baylor Shireman, and he got removed from the seats.
Got removed.
I don't even know what he said, but they said something to the referee, and then they said, "Get him out of here."
It's a hot ticket too. It'll be hot ticket on Sunday. You'll have to pay a lot to sit in that lower bowl. Over 100.
Over 100.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not selling. And everyone, we have our four as a family, and people come out of the woodwork. Do you have tickets? Do you know anyone that has? I mean, people want to come.
Yeah, this season, it's been interesting, and it's going to get more interesting because they are capable of a lot. But they're a scary team, Sean.
And I love the fact in an NCAA tournament they're going to play a new team.
Yeah,
like somebody that's never played Tominaga.
Right.
Like Purdue and these teams have played Tominaga 4 or 5 times, 6 times, and some.
The reason we're doing this, having this discussion, to me is. Part of it is, I used to say if Nebraska's not making threes, they're not going to be much of a threat. They are a threat now when they're not making threes because they're really playing defense, and they can shut a team down. So they are scary, and they won't have many bad shooting nights because they're good shooters. You've noticed they've had at times 2 prominent guys not shoot the ball well, and they're usually okay. Because they have enough guys to make up for.
They have 6 people that can score.
Yeah, shooters.
And Alec, I'm not counting Alec as a scorer. I think he's more of a role player. I mean, but I feel like there's at least 6 guys that can put up double digits on this team, and then there's 2 role pieces, Alec and Hoiberg.
Yeah, that's good. It's good analysis.
I mean, Alec and Hoiberg are the floor burn guys. They do all the dirty work. Mm-hmm. Then they got 6 other guys that can shoot it and score.
Yeah, they're good shooters.
So, all right, I'm already excited for Sunday.
Yeah, it'll be fun. Wear a short sleeve shirt because it's gonna be warm in there. It's gonna be warm. Wear a short sleeve.
We have a swim meet. Then we're gonna come right over. So we're gonna get down there early.
Yeah, it'll be fun. I'll be there too with Rob.
Well, thanks again to Tony
Carter.
White and Carter, the big dog.
Yeah, the big dog.
The bullpen.
Yeah, bullpen catcher.
Thanks again to Tony White for joining us here on Husker Online Headlines. If you're not a member of Husker Online, we got a great deal. Just for $1, you'll get 2 months. Use promo code NU1. That gets you 2 months for $1. Thanks again to Tony White or Steve Sipple. I'm Sean Callahan, signing off for another edition of Husker Online Headlines.